Hello and welcome to the Emma Childers podcast, Embracing the Dash, a collection of stories, art, and encouragement, and creative ways for embracing the dash. Thanks for tuning in. Let's embrace the dash. Now, I've talked about my lawnmower situation where, I got this message and I needed to go get my lawnmower fixed with somebody I didn't even know at the beginning of the day, but I followed it and I got it done, and it didn't cost me anything, but I pursued it. And so oftentimes we think that we can't do things. And I kind of am in a season of my life where I could pretend I don't know how to do things, and I could really want people to come and do everything for me, but I don't want that. I still want to learn as much as I can and do as much as I can to be interdependent in as many ways as I can, and to be responsible for taking care of the things that I can take care of. Because I think we're actually much more capable than we believe. And I think that, between YouTube and Google and all those other places that you can get information, you should be able to figure out certain things. And some things might be too big or too heavy, but many things you are able to fix. And so I think that part of the fun, challenging things that we have that turn up in our life are these little sort of inconveniences that show up, and all of a sudden you're sort of propelled into this other place and you're having to think about something that you don't really have the capacity to think about, but because you're willing to take one step and then take the next step and then the next step, and that each of those steps provides you with a little bit of information to help you move closer to solving the problem. And what's so beautiful about that, it's a really big deal when you can fix something. When you start off not knowing what to do and people have told you one thing and it proved to be not true. And so it's a confidence builder, I would say. It was a confidence builder so that when things do happen, you are not helpless and you're not paralyzed by the thing that has shown up, but you look at it as an opportunity to engage and to use your brain. You use your brain and try to fix something that you don't really know how to fix. But God is giving you an opportunity to get engaged and to keep thinking about it. Because I think that every time we even make a little departure, we want to do something like I want to get my book published, and I'm focused on that. And then it looks like I'm drawn away and I have to go think about fixing a toilet. Well, you think about, I wanted to think about that, but now God is making me think about that. It actually, because you take your mind off of what you're kind of obsessed about and redirect your energy, when you come back to what it was that you put down for a minute, it just seems to go much smoother. So that's been my case. So I think like today, the thing that I think about is, when you step into your moment, into your day, you walk into it and you look around and see what shows up and what grabs your attention. I believe that God is revealing himself to you that in that moment and giving you direction for your day, and so that you can learn something new. And I think we should always look for those opportunities to learn something new, to meet some new people. I remember a time in my life when I needed to have all the notes. I needed to know everything in advance. I needed to, be prepared because I was really afraid of thinking on my feet. Oh, I would say that's another thing. Being able to think on your feet. When a situation arises, that you are not paralyzed by it, or that you are not so frightened by it that you can't move. And that's what I've learned. So many times I think I'm going to do something, and then God brings another situation in my life, and I'm thinking, I wasn't really prepared for that. But then I get to use my personal resources like my brain and try to figure out what to do. And I don't know if I talked about my wheelbarrow, but these are kind of funny departure stories, but I was out working in my yard one day, and I do not bag my leaves, and so what I do is I mulch them, and And in order to do that, I don't leave them on the ground. So I wanted to use my wheelbarrow. And so the wheelbarrow that I like, that's really heavy duty, I was pushing it, and it sounded like, the tire had gone flat, or it wasn't moving very, very efficiently. So I turned it over, and it turned out that the tire was pretty much flat. Okay. So then I decided, well, I have a bicycle air pump. And so I thought, well, I'll go and get that and, use it, but it wasn't working. But I also have a tire inflator that is hooked up to my car. So I got that, and I plugged it in, and I plugged it into the tire, and I filled that little tire up. And it was ready to go. It was ready to go. I remember one time I think I'd taken that tire off, and I thought it was flat. And so I took it to my mechanic, and he said, it only needs air. And so those are kind of the funny things about, our daily life, things that can look like a challenge. But, I turned the wheelbarrow over, I inflated the tire, and I was good to go. I didn't need to interrupt anyone. I didn't need someone to come and, tell me, Emma, you need air in your tire. I was able to figure that one out by myself. And so I think those are some things that I think that's why, for me, I like the different things that I am challenged to do, because I'm not just going on one trajectory, but on many levels. I get to engage in my whole life, from leaky roofs to, putting air in your tire to, running aground and then trying to figure out what to do, all those kinds of little things, leaky toilets, those kinds of issues that come in your life, because those are really issues of life. You don't have control over those things. Those things happen. And so it's about how you engage in. And so, so what I am learning about myself in it is really being patient with myself in these moments where things are not perfect and that things just happen. And so you need to take your time, pause, fix it, and then you get to pick up and go to the next thing. And so, so much of life is really like that. It's really like, it's just doing that. You might have a plan that you want to do certain things, and often I do. I spend my quiet time with God and talk about what I think I'm going to do, and and sometimes on my way to going to do it, God has a different plan for me, and I take those interruptions because I want to be, in this season of my life, the person that God wants me to be, and I don't always know what that is, but I think that every day He wants us to want to embrace life and to go with what life is rolling out for us. And so we get to do that. We get to make the decision every moment if we're going to choose to enter into the situation that we're in. Either we're going to step into it and work it out, or we're going to pause and put it on the side and then come back to it at another time. So for me, I think that living in the moment is the most fulfilling part of living. And sometimes living in the moment means that you're going to pause for the day. Living in the moment might mean you're going to get completely engaged into something, or you're going to do something that you hadn't planned to do. That's living in the moment, and that God is in those moments with us, with me. He is helping me figure things out that I wouldn't otherwise know how to figure out on my own. And sometimes I really get surprised at things that I figure out, that God gives me help with figuring out, and then that I can help someone else figure it out as well. So I think that as you look at life, and as we walk through every day, the everydayness of life, that things will come up. So I don't know how long this is going to run, but 2 weeks ago, I thought that I was at the finish line, with my book, but I didn't get there. And the reason I didn't get there is because the person that I was working with got sick. And so even though I thought I was going to go there, she wasn't able to. And so I had to just pause. And then I had to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with myself? Because I wanted to do this, but the person I'm working with cannot do this. So am I going to, put some personal energy into that and be disappointed? Or am I going to redirect that energy into fine-tuning something or focus on something else? And so, God is always good, because part of my drivenness would have been wanting to figure out, well, maybe I should take over and do it. And that would have been a disaster because I don't have the skill set to do it. And so I do need to allow, the time to be taken for the person to, be healed and feel like she's able to do it. And so I felt like, well, that means I need to do certain other things in which, then I redirect my energy and do other things that need to be done. And so I think those are things that we have to deal with too. Our plans aren't always, always going to work out. It says in Jeremiah that his plans are greater than our plans, and his timing and his ways are different than ours. And so I think we have to learn to to deal with the pluses and the minuses as we go along. And sometimes the minuses actually gives you a moment to regroup and do the things that you need to do. And so last week when I wasn't able to do that, we were able to fill it up with some other things that were necessary, but weren't necessarily planned. And so, but then you just sort of scoot things around and then it fits perfectly. And you wonder, well, okay, you still got all these other things got done. So, I'm grateful for those kinds of things that happen. I don't necessarily like them when they first happen, but what I'm learning in that is to really temper my reaction to it and really to look to God in those moments like, okay, God, this happened. It wasn't what I planned for, but what is it that you want me to learn from the situation? Because sometimes it's really not obvious. Sometimes when an interruption happens and you can either spin out of control of it, or you can pause and take a look at it and ask God to show you, okay, what do I need to see? What have I missed in this? What am I missing, or what have I missed? And so when you ask those questions, God does give you answers to those questions. So I think those moments are moments that we need to slow down. For me, I do need to slow down. I'm sometimes going too fast, and sometimes I have to. And sometimes in those moments where I go too fast, I find out that okay, you need to slow down because you don't remember what you did with your keys. For example, I'm kind of like a key person because, for one thing, I have too many keys, but I have these separate sets of keys for this and that. And so one day I went out, when it was raining and I needed to make a quick stop. And so I made a quick stop. I left here and I went to go make my quick stop. And then I got home and I could not find my keys. Okay. So I used to go into a panic attack when I couldn't find my keys. But now I just say, okay, God, I know those keys are somewhere, and you're going to show me where they are when you're ready for me to find them. And so I'm blessed. I have a spare set of keys, and I use those spare set of keys. But and this is where sometimes I just have to laugh. Well, there are those keys, on the floorboard. There they were, just sitting right there. No, I hadn't lost them. No, I didn't do anything goofy with them. They were just there. So I'm learning to just have peace in the moments, peace in all the moments, whether it's lost key, leaky toilet, lawnmower not working, certain things not happening right. And that's what that peace is that God talks about, that peace that passes all understanding, to guard our hearts and our minds in Christ Jesus. And whether or not, to not get on those highs and those lows, but to try to stay even. And so when you stay even, you're just more aware of your blood pressure and your pulse and, what's happening in your body, because when we take ourselves through those highs and those lows, it really does affect our bodies. Because, when adrenaline is pumping and you're really scared or you're really excited about something, it does something to your body. And then you go into those real lows or depression, really sadness because something's not going your way. Something, physically does happen to your body when you do that. And so it really does center around our choices, the choices to react or respond and to live in a way of peace. And I think for me, and like for many of everyone else, the challenge is to live in peace with ourselves, right in the moment that we're in. And if we can choose a peace moment for ourselves, that we aren't chastising ourselves, that we're not belittling ourselves, that we're not using those voices that were once used on us, that we don't then do the same thing to ourselves, because that would not be the voice of God. That would not be the voice of God our Father, who loves us. And so sometimes we have got to make those decisions to rethink that, to make that paradigm shift in ourselves, to not go in that place where we're criticizing ourselves or judging ourselves harshly, because that's what was done to us. And sometimes that, might be an automatic response that we have to learn to undo. And I think that many of those things are the hardest things to do, is to undo those learned behaviors that we really didn't know that we learned. It was like because it's part of our environment. And so part of our learning never finishes. How about that? It never finishes, because we're always learning to be more like Jesus and to get closer to him. And if we can look upon our behaviors sometimes, for me, I know that God is concerned about, how I interact with other people and how I treat other people. And and sometimes I need those pause moments when I'm trying to go too fast and, being too critical and too judgmental, because that was my default. But that's not God's default. And so I needed some rethinking in that area for things that occur in my life, that I needed to take a pause and take a moment and say, that's not what I wanted to have happen. And I don't like that this much, but God is permitting it. So I'm wondering what might be the message here. And so that's what I would ask each of you, is that when you have those moments that are uncomfortable or that seemingly are a surprise, what might God be trying to say to you that isn't exactly the thing that you're looking at, but what is it behind it? What's the thing that's behind it? So what is behind the pause moment that God has given you something to look at, that the thing that you're looking at is obvious, because you really do, because I really did have a tire that was flat. It was real, that physical information, that was factual and it was right. But what did he want me to do? What did he want me to do about that? He wanted me to draw on my own resources. He didn't want me to jump out and say, come and help me, fix this for me. He wanted me to say, you know what to do with that. You know how to fix that. Here's how you do it. Now go do it. So many times we don't think we know how to do things because we don't want to. But God will show us every single time. He will show us how to do it. And it might not necessarily be someone else. Sometimes it will be someone. But sometimes it might be just you. You and God. You and God get to do it together. And I love those moments when we get to do it together. Because then I think, oh yay, I didn't have to ask anyone. I could do this. And actually, we're more capable than we think we are. We're a lot more capable than we think we are. And because with God's help, how could you not be? How could you not be more capable? If you just pause and let him show you. Don't be in a hurry. Let him give you the answer. Because you don't have the answer. You didn't get it in 30 seconds, so you don't have it. Thanks for tuning in. Let's embrace the dash.